Writers Fellowship. He has performed, lectured, and taught creative writing and theater nationally and internationally, is a Dodge Foundation poet, and a contributing editor for Quayle Literary Journal. So that's all the professional. This is not all the professional stuff. There is a lot more, and I won't go into it. But Google him. Personally, I've known and worked with Vincent for over a decade now. He's been a friend, a colleague, a mentor, an inspiration in the workplace, calling out the social justice org we worked together for not paying more when they added more work to us. And that worked. So thank you, Vincent. You've been helping me out. Vincent was committed to doing all the hard work of teaching from an anti-colonial perspective, teaching young people about the world as it really is, and how they can respond to it as artists. I think that's super important for Vincent. Like, as artists, they can experiment, and also with tradition, and with a whole range of emotion. You've never seen somebody work the magic Vincent has worked in the middle school classroom. Professoring, tough gig. Middle school, really tough gig. Getting those young poets to write Ulipo poems and perform the hell out of them. Made of their own rules. This inspired me to take my students seriously, to never underestimate how much a young person can understand or respond to, how much a young person can understand or respond to or create. When I was poking around his other books, I came across a friend of both of ours' words about his work, and I can't help but take the opportunity to bring her into the space tonight, to have her gather here with us too. Camila Aisha Moon. Yeah. Wonderful poet, writes, as proposed by James Baldwin in The Creative Process, Vincent Toro has taken up the artist's mantle to expose, just thinking about Camila, to expose and mirror society's true conditions and faces to itself for the sake of liberation. You must bring your whole self to the reading of his work that explores the gamut of human error, evil, striving, and triumph, while probing how complex, revelatory, and potent language can be. These poems demand revolution in our ways of thinking, framing, creating, and being. These poems don't flinch or let you catch your breath, yet are clearly driven by a tenacious love and radical hope. Formally inventive, these urgent poems valiantly comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. So that's Camila. Camila wrote that of Tertulia, Vincent's last book, but it stands for Hivestruck as well. This book is a response to technology, to its effect on Vincent, on all of us. It's, like Camila says, a challenge to our ways of thinking, framing, creating, and being. Vincent Toro is better than any AI, any bot, and most humans when it comes to experimentation, remixing, playing with ideas and concepts and words, while maintaining, and he also maintains, all the while, sorry, I was going to revise that one earlier. Didn't have a pen. All the while maintaining a deep faith in humans and meaning, and making meaning together, while also holding tradition close. To be clear, not white European tradition, but high buns, decimas. I don't know if you're doing like an iPhone. I don't just bot centos, bot erasures. Come on, look at the book. Take a look at the notes section. It's just brilliant. Over the last decade, I've had the pleasure of hearing about the dozens of books about technology that Vincent has read. Over pierogies down the street here at Veselka, at B&H Dairy, and because it's Vincent, the poems based on all of that still surprise the hell out of me, make me laugh, make me groan. Vincent is deeply committed to sharing all of his exuberance, all of his challenges, and his overflowing creativity with his friends, his students, with all of us, and I am so excited to get to welcome him here tonight. So please give a raucous welcome to Vincent Toro.
So I'm not going to read. I'm just going to go home because it's not going to get any better. Like, there's no way I can live up to that. So I'd rather leave it to your imagination. No, I'm just kidding. Just want to quickly say before I start, thank you to the Poetry Project for having us. The legendary Poetry Project. People in New York know the legacy of this place. It's an honor to be back here. And I want to thank Daniel for inviting me to be here and to read with you. Seriously, Daniel, I've loved your work long before I met you, so it's really an honor for me to be here with you and to share. And so I kind of planned my set as a kind of conversation to the kind of work that Daniel writes about, which I really love. I feel like you bring the Latin American poetic traditions into El Norte in a way that is really exciting to me. So I think I'd open, and also because my friends are here, I got to try some stuff I haven't read before, because they've heard some of these before. This will be my first time reading some of these. But I want to open kind of dark. We're not afraid of dark poetry here. But, the election's coming up. And, if you turn on the TV, I don't know if you've noticed, we're hearing dinosaurs screaming because they're noticing their extinction. They're screaming desperately, right? So this poem I wrote before all of this, but it was really about that. I noticed the dinosaurs crying that their extinction was coming. They call it other things, but that's what it is. So this is called Panopticon Confederacy. He longs to discover a nook of the couch where no living thing might find him. A place occupied by the swarm of jump-cut edits where thin men launch themselves down traffic storms with cardboard signs and fistful of conviction. Each angle offers him pastiche where the ungroomed dance to silent rhythms, circling the local pharmacy with only their grimace to protect them. Their need to press up against each other and urge neighbors to throw up their arms bedevils him, or it makes him bitter, or perhaps it makes him sanguine. Sanguinely bitter to be told they demand a seat at the feast where bloodstains become poker chips, or so he is told. He is told, and so he tells. No need to cross-check dispatches. Their willingness to act, to cry, to sleep in littered ATM stations astounds him. He can't imagine wanting anything so badly. He can't imagine wanting. He can't imagine. When the pepper spray is drawn and the crowd becomes subsumed by SWAT shields and fire hoses, his heart rate settles into the muted hum of an electric fan. It's like something he's seen on TV, this thing he's seeing on TV. He figures they'll only get what they deserve, or they'll deserve what they get. They must be mad, he figures, to want more than the crystal clear picture they get on their phones. He remembers dial-up and answering machines made of magnetic tape. He wonders what more could one need than a freezer full of chopped meat. They're spoiled rotten, he thinks. The machine reminds him that his favorite reality program is about to begin. What was I thinking, he thinks? His bowels clench. He reaches for the armrest, grunts, wiggles between the seat cushions, stares down the wire tapestry of ultraviolet light that stares him down, tempting him to blink. So this is a sound poem in the tradition of some of my favorites, ones that I know that Oduyoan know about, like Tracy Morris and Edwin Torres. But this is also about those things that are in your pocket. A lot of the stuff's about the phones. This is called Isistina guaguancookies.exe. Scroll, add, scroll, text, pick. Scroll, swipe, add, text, pick. Add, swipe, text, send, pick, swipe, pick, scroll, scroll, send, swipe, send, add, pick, text, send, tick, scroll, add, scroll, add, scroll, add, scroll, add, scroll, add, scroll, add, send, swipe, text. Pick, add, scroll, add, pick, text, swipe, pick, add, swipe, scroll, scroll, pick, text, text, pick, send, pick, scroll, swipe, pick, swipe, add, text, add, send, swipe, swipe. pick, swipe, add, swipe, scroll, text, pick, send, text, send, swipe, send, add, swipe, pick, add, text, scroll, text, add, scroll, swipe, send, picks, text, add, send, add, text, pick, scroll, text, add, swipe, send, pick, scroll, text, send, swipe, add, text, scroll, pick, send, swipe, add, tick, send, pick, scroll, add, scroll, add, send, swipe, scroll, send, swipe, scroll, send, scroll, pick, scroll, text, pick, add, pick, swipe, send, swipe, text, add, send, scroll, pad, add, text, add, swipe, text, swipe, text, swipe, add, text, pick, text, add, pick, swipe, scroll, pick, scroll, swipe, add, text, pick, send, add, scroll, pick, add, scroll, send, pick, send, text, swipe, add, scroll, send, text, add, swipe, text, troll, add, send, add, scroll, text, send, swipe, pick, scroll, text, add, swipe, text, add, text, pick, text, swipe, send, add, swipe, pick, text, send, add, pick, text, scroll, text, add, swipe, send, scroll, send, swipe, scroll, add, text, add, text, send, add, pick, scroll, swipe, send, swipe, text, scroll, send, pick, add, swipe, add, swipe, pick, send, scroll, text, scroll, send, text, pick, send, scroll, add, pick, scroll, text, add, text, pick, swipe, pick, text, add, pick, add, text, and text, scroll, swipe, send, add, swipe, add, send, add, pick. Thanks. So I'm going to read some of the hive-struck ones for you. I got another one before we get to the hive-struck one. Sorry. I had this planned and then I messed up my plan. So in thinking about actually some of the work, I read Daniel's book this summer. And part of what moves me about your work, Daniel, is the way that you examine how capitalism tortures the human body, the grueling ways in which we are forced to contort ourselves just to prove we have a right to exist. And so this piece, I think, speaks to that. It's called Content Moderator's Lament. Among all those books that Andy mentioned that I was reading, I read about the people that are hired almost exclusively in the global south to basically watch everything that gets uploaded, to make sure that there's nothing that a company could get sued for. Not that there's anything morally wrong, but that they can get sued for. And essentially, we pay these people very low wages to look at some of the most horrific images that you can possibly imagine hour upon hour. And these folks can't afford therapy, and they carry the trauma of their job home with them every day. So this poem's about that. It's called Content Moderator's Lament. It's something more, no less, than trash, what I've viewed. A dereliction of cubicle and the unfathomable macabre from this cavern. I sort through it all, flag each AVI transgression for a substandard salary with no benefits. There's the beheadings, the suicides, the unmentionables that I am paid to screen, things that can't be unseen. Boss told me it was an important job, that I would be the gatekeeper, the front line protecting community standards. But what community and what are the standards? For this occupation, there is no employee manual, no professional development seminars to guide me. Boss tells me not to take a position on what I observe. My decisions must be made solely on what is legal, not what I consider decent. I was hired to prevent lawsuits, not judge people's ideas or practices or habits. Boss tells me abuse of children, of course, must go. But the swastikas and leaked celebrity nudes are fair game. Engagement, boss tells me, is worth more than dignity. Every evening, I walk home along the same polluted river we once were pressed to bathe and pray in, make my way to a prefabricated apartment I am able to call my own, find my way to the dinner table to kiss my spouse and children while trying to scrub from my pupils the horrors I've spent 8 hours monitoring, my charge to watch the worst of what this world uploads to its servers. Also, my children can one day live on the side of the partition that pays people like me to scald their retinas, so that a barrister in Manchester can enjoy their macchiato without geysers of snuff film spurting from their consoles, staining their prim snouts. Thank you. I'll lighten it up now. I have a few more for you before I get out of here. I want to read two small sections from the Hive-Struck middle section of the, which is a 36-part poem. It's in the middle of the book. That's all called Hive-Struck. I'll just read two small parts so you can get a taste of that, and they got two more. Selfie-stuck filter junkie. Every image obscured by self-serving cranial obstructions of sunsets, fireworks, gallery openings, iguanas, EDM festivals, selfie-envious, spellbound, blitzkrieg of self-serious poses occluding landscapes, occasions, all now set dressing for human flesh. Some claim it to be a mode of self-actualization, the shrinking of the world down to cellular frames, selfie-enveloping faux pas and private tragedy, seek counsel for pyrexia of impermanence, now viewed as self-fulfilling prophecy only for those who believe it, selfie-flagellation, a conversion of all public hiccups into gasconades, the selfie swarm subject to self-deception of strong gravitational lensing, where a galaxy presents itself as a dozen galaxies, or as brighter or larger than it actually is. The selfie-struck subject to data rot, conformity of corrosion, self-expression vitiated when the proliferation of image becomes its own reason, selfie-ensorcelled, additionally subject to simulation paradox, where the self's clone is confused for the original, the selfie-enthralled, a Schrodinger's cat mewing to the selfie-eaters, to open the box they sealed themselves inside, selfie-entombed, personal settings reset, self-preservation redesigned, cache cleared, each fashioned a self, a leaf on the link tree falling. So that's at the beginning of the Hive-Struck, and this is one of the end of the Hive-Struck poems. This man-machine caged in Valis sim-being paranoia. Am I real or robot? A deep-seated conundrum seated in the cancered pancreas of empire. Hypostasis of prosthetic necrotectonics designed to codify echelons assessed and stamped onto subjects through a revamped inquisition. Redux of the Valladolid debate at the Colegio de San Gregorio, where de las Casas squabbled with Sepúlveda over whether the indigenous people of the Americas had souls. A test to qualify who is human, who is deserving of basic rights, analog precursor to the Turing test. Pero ambos sistemas eran defectuosos de la misma manera. Encomienda, hegemony, ex-descends kept them from considering that drawing this distinction for others is an act of violence, bone-jacking for beginners. Only the Arawak and the android can make claims about their own ipseity, can grapple with the questions about their capacity to dream of sheep or cualquier otra cosa, a lesson Turing would learn for himself when England decided for him that his true nature was not acceptable to the Crown's heterocolonial programming. Circuits auto-extinguish before null state schematics convert gato pardismo into unreadable fan fiction. Misses out on Pachacuti, where all beings are imbued with the power to name themselves, to assemble their own parts in any manner they choose. Thank you. Thanks. And thanks. And I know they're really dense, though. That's why I don't read too many of them at a time. Super cerebral. I got lost in my head doing the research for this book. I got two more for you, and then I'll be out of here. This is another one of the I. Ars Poetica poems. There are two of them in the book, and this one's called Somatosongo. And it revisits this theme of like this blurring between the body and technology and our addiction to transforming and contorting the body. It's not kind of a sound poem too. Body as question, as electric reflection, as embossed desire, as flower in bloom, self-adulating fire, concrete abstraction, inimitable energy, illimitable promise, trudging toward body as geography, as territory to settle, so harvest to infiltrate, as commonwealth or state flag staked in blood synapses, tissues coerced into annexation, limbs halved in civil wars, declaring body as all, as craned wrench and shovel, as mundane mechanism, repetitive, muzzled gear, muscles, contorted, seared, factory fingers splintered, welding, creating, yet not creative, erecting body as commodity, as trophy, sculpted, polished, tanned, mounted for buyer's pleasure, conditioned to compete, seduce, score, race, tantalize, punish, please, skin with skin, form, flex to titillate, quench, and exacerbate hunger for body as instrument, as melodic testament, migrating from vassal to vessel, polyphony of tissue, vast nerves as brass woodwinds, where compositions of breath siphon through organs, orchestrates emptiness into symphonies, extolling body as symbol, as scripture, as light and language, with manifold function, both message and messenger, sage signpost and map, semi-permeable image, aroused. Flesh emblem, imparting history and prophecy, divulging body as question, as electric reflection, as embossed desire, as flower in bloom, self-adulating fire, concrete abstraction, inimitable energy, illimitable promise, trudging toward. It's hot up here, yo. All right, this is my last one. Thanks for listening, everyone. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to hear Daniel. I'm going to leave you with this last one. This also one, I was thinking about Daniel in his book because we know Daniel's a Chileno, and I mentioned some Chilean history in this last poem. It's called Milagros, Dreams of Cybersyn, which is also a call out to Reverendo Pedro Pietri and Puerto Rican Obituary. And this is one of my Moore's Law poems, Milagros, Dreams of Cybersyn, a Moore's Law epic. 8 towers were in a corner of her garage, downloading the cosmos onto a private server while she works. They are the family she returns home to after she clocks out. One of her 3 monitors flashes pics of Nihao as she takes drags from dunghills and pans broadband rivers of tiffs for a new kind of gold. Her inflamed wrist still recall lunchbox raids where classmates scoffed at the banana leaf-wrapped feast her mother packed for her. How the Blanquito teachers pushed her into a lower track because they couldn't say her name correctly, reporting her quietude as a sign of impaired cognition. This reticence proved to be a secret talent, for no one could hear her CPU calculating ways to eject from this port. Most times, she went undetected when she skipped band practice to hear the squeal of a modem, logging hours at her first console until she learned to wield Unix like a lightsaber. Those same hallway harriers today queue up with their Total Tech cards to beg her to retrieve their family photos. As she pulls the shell off their systems, she finds herself wishing for a hack to make them see the irony in their pleas. For a plug-in she might embed in their espinazos to loop an AVI of her parents sculling the Maimon Basin, después coltan freebooters gourmandize their pueblo using a ransomware more wretched than MongoLock. You see, lossless transfer is a myth. Entire regions of her family's RAM se fueron siempre. Now, Milagros does for her customers what they would never do for her. commit resurrections. Their thankless glances become screen freezes as she hands back their devices. She provides tips they'll never follow for preventing the issue from recurring. Meantime, her backup drives are running diagnostics, performing subroutines that cast hechizos to crash IBM Holocaust software, developing ever-morphing digimasks to disrupt facial recog mining. Claro. Her Intel core is most preoccupied with dreams of cybersin, the machine Salvador Allende hatched to render gringo finance obsolete. Dismantled when the coup brought democracy to an end in Chile, Milagros waxes cybernetic reincarnations of this network paraíso. Meantime, she fields another numb question about storage capacity while whispering to herself about cybersin's second coming. Porque she knows all it takes is the right 8 lines of code to provoke a halt and catch fire. And you know what? Maybe she's the one to write them. These güeros don't know how lucky they are that her parents raised her to see the human even in those infatuated with administering chokeholds. Pero that don't mean that she won't stop from littering these invisible highways with Trojan horses set to bray and trample should their fingers clench too tightly. They just need to leave her and her compadres to have their own nihao. Let them live in a network divorced from this dog and pony terror pageant. Necesitan calmarse. These gabachos gotta learn how to thank a chica for keeping their silicon's roads clear. Porque she knows their pins, and she sees all they stow in the cloud. Thank you, everybody.
Vincent, that was so great. Thank you. Really, wow. Yeah, so next up we have Daniel Borzutzky. My colleague Miran Arsanios, our new program director, wrote the intro for this, but she is not available tonight because it's actually her birthday, so happy birthday, Miran. So I'll be her microphone, as it were. Nature, the sea, the waves, the rain, the river, the lake, the bees, has served historically as a canvas for human-sized projections of grief or joy, a site of poetic personification. The particulars of the natural world, their incommensurable beauty, rescale the self via a kind of sublime decentering, a lyrical power move that simultaneously forgoes and reasserts the first person. That's not how Daniel Borzutsky's poetry works. He knows that the world is too fucked to sustain lyrical delusion. Good old alienation also seems passé, too anchored in the human as we knew it. The murmuring grief of the Americas unfolds in another zone, a world of brutal automation, extractive economies that privatize faces, cheapen our blood, make royalties on antibodies, where the value of your metadata is $400, but you're ready to sell it for $27. Under capital, the great equalizer, both a lake and a face become opportunities for profit. Mountains and beaches are brokered. Everything is an investment, every investment is debt, and all debt is a death sentence. The murmuring grief of the Americas slaps extinction panic in the face. There is no threat since everything has already been sold. In the Americas, oxygen is portioned, which makes it difficult to breathe. Quote, I need 4, I need 5, I need 4, I need another $1, I need to pay the debt I owe on my organs, end quote. Says a narrator, fully aware of his subhuman diminishment. Yet the questions of when will I be human again, and when will you be human again persist, a low-grade subjectivity that refuses to give up on what it has lost. What I like in this book, what makes me hopeful against all odds, is the way Borzutzky divorces the first person from lyrical worth. The self is de-individuated, interchangeable with a we that won't let go of its humanity, the desire to bury its dead, even when beaten into submission by the state or the banks, which are the same thing. quote, has our request to mourn been stamped with the appropriate seals and signatures? A voice asks, their face privatized but hot with grief. In a poem that shares the title of this fantastic collection, children cross the border toward the promised land under the glare of a camera that records patriots shooting at them. From behind the camera, the director instructs them not to die. Quote, if you die, there is no evidence that once you were alive, then no one will know that we loved you, end quote. But Simon, a character that emerges in the poem, knows he must die again for death to purge the degraded meaning this life has imposed on it. To be done with life means to be done with death, and to become the mountains that separate myself from myself. A vision of the humanity humans have lost haunts the murmuring grief of the Americas like a hum, a low, continuous, subverbal pulse that doesn't restore anything to its previous state, but reminds empire that its own wretchedness will eventually dissolve it. Please welcome Daniel Borzutzky.
Thank you so much, Will, everyone at the Poetry Project, Miren, for that amazing introduction. Anna, Roberto, everyone who works here made this event possible, all the visible and invisible labor that goes into it. Thank you all for coming. It is wonderful. There's lots of other things on a Friday night in New York you could be doing, so thank you for being here. As I've given a few interviews about this book, and I've gotten this question, like, what distinguishes this book from your other books? And I'm like, nothing. They're the same book. And I've been thinking about that a lot. Like, a book is like a marker of time, but not necessarily like a marker of different work. So that, and just as proof of that, I'm just going to start in my very last book, before this, Written After a Massacre in the year 2018, which poses the question that is the title for this book. So I'll just read a few passages from that, and then a few things from Murmuring, and then a few new things. And this is a poem called Written After the Massacre in the year 2018. You hid behind the soldiers with machine guns running down the street. You were praying for plagues and wishing your parents would come out of the building alive. The worshippers of the dead trees knew where there is a first kill, there will be a second. Where there is a third kill, there will be a fourth, a fifth, a 500th. The anecdote destroys the analysis. 11. The emigrants split their bodies into communal assets. To assimilate, they must stand by the river with a prophylactic angel in their hands, disguised as a rocketing hedge fund. In the rupture, in the rubble, in the pathological eye sockets, in the counter-odyssey of the whites of your eyes, in the parliamentary assault rifle, the parliamentary machine gun splatter, the illegal bodies in cages are painted over by the analytics and mathematics of the hemisphere. How do you quantify the broken toddlers rolling on the ground? How do you quantify the murmuring grief of the Americas? 12. Marines medicate mothers and mix their milk with mononucleosis. Millionaires multiply in the machinery of mourning, manufacturing mausoleums for martyred Marxists and Mercedes. Middle managers mistake manipulative merchants for munificent moralists. A military massacre on the municipal motorway is like a military massacre on the municipal motorway. Metaphysical mayors mediate the mythology of mystical markets while monitoring the murders of migrants. My mouth is filled with worms. So as you hear, the book starts as an answer to that question, how do you quantify the murmuring grief of the Americas? I'm really into quantification and data. Data is perhaps one way to quantify it, but I was thinking about ecological decay, war, violence, migration, all as sort of means of quantification. And so that's perhaps a starting point for this book. We'll begin with the beginning. I shall miss myself so much when I die, Clarice Lispector. Of glory, not a beam is left, but her eternal house. The asterisk is for the dead. the living for the stars. Emily Dickinson. I shall miss myself so much when I die. Of glory not a beam is left. I shall miss myself, but her eternal house. I shall miss myself so much when I die. The asterisk is for the dead. I shall miss myself so much when I die. The living for the stars. I'm going to read from the poem that was quoted a bit in the introduction. It's called Sustainable Growth, number 205. And I was thinking about sustainable growth as both like a concept of ecology and one of economy, and how those two things are kind of at odds with each other. Like sustainable growth and economies is very much in conflict with sustainable growth and ecologies. Sustainable growth. What do you cost? What do you cost? How much are they willing to give you? How much are they willing to give you? What will you give them? What will you give them? What will you give them? What will you give? I will give them my face. I need $6. I will give them my hand. I need $5. My mouth is dead. I will give them something from my mouth. My mouth is dead. I need $27 for rice, eggs, bread, milk. I'll sell my metadata for $27. I'll sell you the metadata and the metadata of my metadata. What does my face cost? I need $7 for lunch. Metadata says I bought too many books about mental illness. What? What does my condition cost? I need to assess the metadata on my skin. How much for these knuckles? How much for these ankles? I'll give them 34 hours a week. I'll give them 52 hours a week. I'll give them 312. I'll give them 12. I'll give them 8, 43, 15. Shh. Don't need to go to a third party for my metadata. I'll sell you my password. HR8491 $. What? They test my metadata for toxicity. I have too many assets in my portfolio, but I don't own any of them. The assets are bloody. The assets are untimely. The assets are drowning. I look for my body, but it's underwater. I look for my metadata, but it's underwater. I look for my value, but it's tied up in the metadata and my metadata. I look for my time, but they tell me it's just a metaphor. I cannot interpret the metaphor unless I pay $46. So many names for what I owe. Is your face really a surveillance machine that can hijack refugee data? So many things to put in my mouth. I have wrapped my head in double-grade fabric designed to block signal detection. So many openings to fill with blank verse. So many holes, so many overpriced metaphors. I don't know where they put my body. Need less contaminated data. Need more unwavering data. Need more robust data. Need to get the dead kids out of my data. I need $6 for lunch. I need $2 for the bus, $5 to make it through the purge today. I cost more than I used to cost and less than my neighbors cost. I need a more precise assessment of my social relations. My exchange value needs to be corroborated. I need to know the most profitable body part to invest in. My house is underwater. I need to find the bridge, the boat, the mouth, the dirt, the dollar. Judge says the state won't return my metadata until I can prove it won't be used for criminal activity. The value of my metadata is $400. I already paid $900 in court fees and still I can't get my data back. I meet with a lawyer who says he can help me get it back. We'll need some ripe organs, he says. I only have one decent kidney. What about antibodies? The royalties on my antibodies were only $37 last year. He helps me unload some algorithms, and I asked the judge to return my data baby. Judge says, you'll need to rehumanize your face before I let you touch that stuff again. I go back to the bank. They say my face can be exchanged for the future metadata of poor kids in developing countries who will soon be middle class. A banker tests my body for redundancies. He sends me to the vault for an appraisal. They take my DNA and I sign some papers I don't understand, and the data analyst congratulates me. You're lucky, she says. You will always be human again. Cesar Vallejo, a book sprouted behind over the corpse abruptly, Lispector, I shall miss myself so much when I die. Vallejo, the dead always died from life. I shall miss myself so much when I die. A book sprouted over the corpse. Abruptly, the dead always died from life. Excuse me, sir. What time is the massacre? Secret code number 306. A drunk poet in the audience heckles me. You're not as good as Artaud, he yells. You'll never be as good as Artaud. He apologizes after the reading and asks me if I like Artaud. I tell him my opinions about Artaud, and he suggests we meet for coffee. The headline of the article reads, quote, Chicago poet seized as fugitive killer, which I invite you to Google. She kisses me and says, I only like you for your exchange value. No one cares about your use value. The fugitive poet didn't appear to have a violent side. He was an anti-war activist, and everyone thought he was funny. When I was younger, I was taught that curiosity about the secret code would inevitably lead to catastrophe. They say you can only understand your own body after you have understood the bodies of others. The boys have a problem. Their fathers. They want to solve the problem by killing them. I only use punctuation to convey confusion, ? Or enthusiasm, ! All the words make sense. I understand the text, the subtext, the connotations, the metaphors, the references and allusions, but in the end I have no idea what any of it actually means. I ask her for a password and she whispers in my ear, Beowulf 43! When he was a child, he believed he could change a thing by looking at it. If I don't see it, does it actually exist? In my head, I say over and over again, Beowulf 43! But when it comes to type in the password, and the animals have escaped me, Beowulf 43! Baywatch 43! It's not a bad idea to learn how to build a ventilator. I want to believe that if I look at the television long enough, I might change the outcome of the game. My father calls with an urgent message. The market doesn't care about your feelings. You can begin a sentence in the middle of another sentence in order to make a new sentence. Care about your feelings. You can write the sentence as if the subject were implied, or you can write the sentence as a question. It doesn't care about your feelings. Doesn't it care about your feelings? I ask about the secret code, and she tells me it's an ever-changing set of unarticulated knowledge that I'm too uncouth to access. You can take classes on etiquette. You can hire a professional to manage your skincare and hygiene. You can subscribe to a service that buys clothes for you. I own 6 pairs of jeans, but I wear the same ones every day. I can't focus on the movie because I keep thinking of snappy responses I could have said to the poet who tells me I will never be as good as Artaud. I'm sick of being alive, but I'm too afraid to die. Is it okay if I tell you this? You can look into the sky and see a thread that connects your body to the planets and the stars. I don't know what that means, but I suspect it might be true. What is the name of that tree? I'm going to switch. I'm working on a book that is called Blank Book, Pain Blank. The pain blank part is from Emily Dickinson's poem, Pain Has an Element of Blank. The blank book part is my deep desire to write a book with nothing in it. And so those two things are entering into this. So when you hear the page numbers, that is from the blank book. That are actually not really text, but it's sort of invisible stuff that's happening there. Page 10, pigeon flesh, flesh of starving children. Page 11, the tranquility of the past, erosion of the blank page. Page 12, Artaud's voice in the blankness is unmistakable. Page 13, Exodus 3:21, ye shall not go empty. Page 14, Deuteronomy 16:16, they shall not appear before the Lord empty. Page 15, Ruth 1:21, the Lord hath brought me home again empty. Page 16, Isaiah 24:1, behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty. Or for Isaac. This is a retelling of the Abraham and Isaac story. And he took his father to the flame, and his father said, I am not a goat. And the boy said, no, you're not a goat. And the father said, where are the goats? And the boy said, you are a goat today, or you will be a goat. The father thought about hybrid beasts and said nothing. He looked with love at the strange child he created. He thought about how hard it had been to keep the boy alive. And when the boy led him down the death path, he kept thinking, I should be in charge. But I'm tired, and I can't do anything to gain control. I'm crinkled, worn out, sick of seeing. Things get destroyed all the time in my name. Do I mind that I might be turned into someone else's burden? Also, I admire my son's determination. Someone, the voice of X, told him to take me to the flame. Someone serious, a credible character, told him to take me to the flame. It would have been perfectly reasonable to resist, to say, look, son, this is not the kind of thing you should do to your father. But I was tired and the child was persistent, and I wondered, how long will this thing go on? It's true, I'm old now. I don't actually want to live that much longer, but there are a few more things I have to do. Is it presumptuous to say there is a future that depends on me? The earth has its own ideas, the sea has other ideas, and the sky has other ideas. There are just a few bodies falling from the sky today. I think I recognize some of them. They are my children, and one of them whispers to me, this is not the right way to live. And to live in the wrong way is to die in the wrong way. Who said that? And what did they mean? Before he takes me to the flame, I tell my son, there is nothing left to do here on earth. I welcome the pain, and I welcome my son's audacity. I admire his fingers as they grip my shirt sleeve. In those fingers, I feel sadness, tenacity, anger, hope. I feel the violence of the centuries filling up in his blood. I know how lonely it is in his body. The expectations of our people are extraordinary. Page 20, things keep happening. Page 21, all the pages are blank, but there is no repetition. Page 22, bodies keep hatching, growing smaller and smaller. Page 23, the body I occupy is false flesh. Page 24, the readers feel itchy. Page 25, someone says, what a cute little hurricane. Page 29, see Dante. Page 28, if my disappearance were not in this book, where would it be? Page 30, a voice says, if you swallow foamy saliva, I will swallow with you. Page 32, the world in a breath. Page 33, one can speak of a sickness of writing. Page 34, the sickness of breathing, melting. Page 35, the page is surveilling our blankness. Unknowing. On the day before, a few days before the tomorrow that is before the tomorrow that will come, a few days before the yesterdays that will come before the tomorrow. On the day before the tomorrow that is before the tomorrow that will come a few days before the yesterdays that are the same days as tomorrow. Is this a question of time or is it a question of language? Perhaps this is a question of an enormous body of thought, of time, of breath, of death, of desire. I found my land floating in the sea. I found my boat sinking in the land. The land came to shore. It came afloat. And when the cast of characters was revealed, there was only a list of verbs. Everyone was named after a verb: to eat, to fashion, to give, to blonde, to birth, to war, to honor. There was a human dressed like a bird. It was Sunday, and everyone wanted to sit next to me at the cafe to tell me about all of the things they could not keep in their bodies. We have to keep singing or else the gods won't know that we love them, a man tells me as he tries to sell me candy to support his daughter who has an incurable form of cancer. We cannot stop singing, he tells me. I buy a chocolate bar and open it up. It is old and stale. I eat the chocolate and think of an incurable illness. I have been conned, but still I feel emotional enough to make a list of meaningful verbs: to find, to believe, to preserve, to find something dead in your closet, to preserve something dead in your dresser, to believe in something kind in your interrogators, to find secret plagues within the 10 plagues we mark at Passover. There are fires within the diseased cattle. There are tortured bodies under fluorescent lights in the darkness. There are secret locusts in the locusts. I lay myself down in the woods amid the wounded trees to look for poetry. Once upon a time I lay on the pier for 9 months. It burned into thin air, and to comfort me, the sun crossed the waves and talked to me about verbs: to spread, to leave, to witness, to dream of a new type of face, and on that face there are new types of lips, and those lips have the power to burn little slices off my head. Please join me in this war we are forced to wage in order to preserve the sanctity of this block of ice. Please war with me, fast, and breathe another self into my other self. Breathe modesty into these flames. Breathe. Don't breathe in vain, because soon a crowd will celebrate how the war will never end. A crowd will bless the sacred corpse that hides in the open air. They will celebrate the endless war with songs and games and parades. And death and money and money and death 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 and money and money and death and death and death and death and money and death. And death and money, death and money, death and money, death, death, death and money, death and money, death and money, death, death, money, money, death, death, money, money, death, death, money, death, money, death, money, money, death, death, breathe. Repeat. Captivation. Disappearance. Captivated. Disappeared. Captivity. Documented. Breathe. Breathe. And death and money and money and death and death and money and money and death and money and death and death and money and money and death and money and death and money and death and death and death and money and money and money and money and death, death, money, money, death, death, money, money, death, 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 money, 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 death, death, breathe. The question we intend to ask is what it means to live in a cage and how it is that we can escape from this cage if all we see on the other side of the cage is a cage that does not look like a cage. I must relate myself to someone. I withhold my body the way a hunger artist withholds food from their mouth. I consider withholding to be the most important form of art. I consider shrinking to be an important form of art. I consider disappearing to be a form of art. I am precisely not myself when I am most myself. I fundamentally lack relation. I am interested precisely in the blank spot on your skin. I am interested in the aesthetics of the blank spot on your skin. Like my father, I have an unruly patch of hair near my ear. My instincts tell me that it's safer to remain unseen. I live a life that is determined by other people's desires. What am I? Or what is the name of this song? And I will end with a kind of final... Thank you. No, I have a Cybersyn poem too, but I'm still I'm not going to read it. But Cybersyn was this crazy utopian experiment in bureaucratic management that was undertaken during the Allende administration. It's sort of like an early version of the internet that had its roots in cybernetics and 1950s managerial science. It's like both like really exciting and like really geeky at the same time, and they were like all crazed. And there was probably all sorts of capitalist versions of this thing that were happening elsewhere in the world. But anyway. There's a podcast about it. It's really good. Okay, I'll read a few sequences. The last section of the book is called The Murmuring Grief of the Americas, and I'll just read a few of these pieces to take us out. The Murmuring Grief of the Americas. They take the children underground. They tie their hands behind their backs. They put the children in a cage. They tell the children, we have a vision for the future. We will blow up the river. You will blow up the river because it's too expensive to maintain it. Together, we will blow up the river and we will fill it with pharmaceuticals. There are mufflers and tires floating in the river. There are plastic toys from Asia. There are cell phones in the river, SIM cards and lithium batteries in the river, cadmium and cobalt oxide and carbide graphite in the river. There are desperate laborers trying to cross the river. How much should we pay them? Ask the authoritative bodies. Market rate? They will love us like we are their parents, say the authoritative bodies. They will protect the pharmaceuticals. They will protect the lithium. They will protect the cobalt. They will protect the carbon and the graphite. They will love the metals and minerals, the enzymes and acids as if they were their most cherished friends and family. The Murmuring Grief of the Americas. And thank you so much, Vincent, for that amazing reasoning. One morning, a man looks at a blank child he is about to shoot. He sees a structure he cannot build into his life. He sees a language he cannot build into his life. He sees an eye falling out of his face. He sees the cancer of the past reasserting itself into an organism of the present. The organism weeps. The sky weeps. The grass weeps. And the man cannot build this weeping into his life, so he puts the blank child in a hole with the mourners. But he doesn't like the language in which the mourners grieve, so he teaches them how to grieve in the right language. He teaches them how to weep in the right language. When they lose their eyes, he wants to hold their vision in his body. When they lose their mouths, he wants to hold their teeth in his body. He wants to own their pain. He wants to own the murmurs they make by sliding their tongue against the roofs of their mouths. He wants to own the murmurs they make by pursing their lips together and opening and closing them slowly. He wants to own their sibilance, their snorts, their silence. They ask us what we are doing at Target, and we tell them we need to buy sheets. We cannot pronounce our words correctly, and they say, "You need to buy shits, you need to buy shits." And they arrest us and laugh at us and tell the manager of the store that we look like shit and smell like shit. And isn't it funny that we need to buy shit? My mother tells a story that when she was arrived in this country, she couldn't say sheets, and she would try to buy shit, and they would look at her, and then finally she learned the word linens, and that was like a life-changing thing to, not have to say shit or for sheets. And they arrest us and laugh at us and tell the manager of the store that we look like shit and smell like shit, and isn't it funny that we need to buy shit? And in our dreams, we throw up on them. Our vomit is purple like the dirty milk they jam into our bodies. They have snakes in their hair, and they say, "We are fighting to protect the revolution of the endangered white man." They suck us in and suck us out and show us pictures of their motorboats destroyed in last year's hurricane. Just debris now, they say. And they tell us the rain is our fault. They say we are like the evil wind that blows through the Carolinas. They say you are lucky to have your lives. They say we hate you because you are what we are not. May your bodies fill with disease. The murmuring grief of the Americas. First come the winds. They are so light we can barely feel them. The moist air hangs above the hills, and when the rain falls, there is no thunder to move it. There's only a huge storm and a light wind, and the cloud mass forms a smaller cloud mass, and soon there are cloud masses waiting to take their revenge. The authoritative bodies want to change the weather, but their science is all wrong. The air pressure is too low, and the rain falls, and so do the rocks, so do the trees, so do the hills and houses. When the town is obliterated by the flood, the murderers pay $150 million to rebuild it, but they cannot bring back the bodies who lie dead in the debris. Blessed are the hills that survive. Blessed are the hills that die. Thank you all so much.
Daniel, thank you so much. Wow, I'm speechless. Let's give another round of applause for both of our readers tonight, Daniel Borzutsky and Vincent Toro. I'm already so excited about Murmuring Grief of the Americas, and now I can't wait for that forthcoming book. We do have Vincent and Daniel's books over yonder. There are plenty of copies over there. Please buy them. That's our program. We have some fantastic events coming up this next week. On Wednesday, we have Dennis Cooper and Derek McCormick reading, and then Thursday, we have a reading with Ibrahim Nasrallah featuring a conversation with Huda Fakhreddin, who is his translator. And that's it. Go forth. Have a great night. Thank you all very much. Yeah.